black cleaner answers a foreign call, and ends up saving the billionaire CEO's biggest client. What if a single phone call could change everything you thought you knew about kindness? Marcus Washington had been cleaning office buildings for 15 years, his weathered hands moving with practiced precision across glass surfaces that reflected a city he'd watched transform from the ground up. At 36, he'd seen executives come and go, witnessed late-night tears behind mahogany doors, and learned that wealth couldn't buy the one thing most people desperately needed: someone who truly listened. That Thursday evening, as autumn rain drummed against the 42nd floor windows of Meridian Financial, Marcus was finishing his rounds when an urgent phone started ringing in the corner office. The nameplate read, "Victoria Chen, CEO." She'd left hours ago, but the phone kept ringing with a persistence that made Marcus pause, his cleaning cart squeaking to a stop. He'd always been taught that other people's business wasn't his concern, but something about that relentless ringing tugged at his heart in a way he couldn't ignore. Marcus had worked the Meridian building since Victoria Chen was just another ambitious junior executive with coffee stains on her blazer and dreams bigger than her corner cubicle. He'd watched her climb every rung of success, noting how she still said, "Good evening," when others barely acknowledged his presence. She had a photo on her desk, a silver-haired woman in a wheelchair, smiling beside a garden of roses, that she'd touch gently each morning like a prayer. The phone rang again, shrill and desperate. Marcus glanced around the empty office, his conscience wrestling with protocol. In all his years, he'd never answered anyone else's phone. But the caller ID showed international numbers, and something deep in his gut whispered that this wasn't ordinary business. His own mother had raised him to help when help was needed, even when it meant stepping outside comfortable boundaries. He picked up on the 7th ring. "Meridian Financial, this is Marcus speaking." His voice carried the gentle authority of someone who'd spent years caring for others. The woman on the other end was crying. Through broken English and desperate sobs, Marcus pieced together her story. She was calling from Tokyo, Mrs. Tanaka, whose family company had been Meridian's largest international client for over a decade. Her husband had suffered a massive heart attack. She was alone in a foreign hospital, trying to navigate insurance complications that threatened to bankrupt their business and leave her husband without the surgery he desperately needed. She'd been calling Victoria for hours, not knowing about American time zones, panic overriding logic. Marcus found himself doing something that went against every employee handbook rule he'd ever signed. "Ma'am, you hold on just one moment. Don't you hang up that phone." He pulled out his personal cell and dialed Victoria's emergency number, knowing he might lose his job for this breach of protocol. Victoria answered on the 2nd ring, sounding tired. "Marcus? Is everything all right? Miss Chen, I know I shouldn't have answered your phone, but there's a lady in Tokyo who needs your help real bad. Her husband's dying, and she's been trying to reach you for hours." The silence stretched long enough that Marcus wondered if the connection had dropped. Then Victoria's voice came back, sharp with urgency. "Put her through to my direct line." And Marcus, "Thank you for caring enough to break the rules." What Marcus didn't know was that the Tanaka account represented 40% of Meridian's international revenue. Losing them wouldn't just mean lost profits, it would mean layoffs, maybe even bankruptcy for Victoria's company. She'd built Meridian from nothing after her own mother's medical bills had destroyed her family's finances years ago. That photo on her desk wasn't just decoration, it was her daily reminder of why she fought so hard for financial security. Victoria rushed back to the office within 30 minutes, her usually perfect hair disheveled from the rainy drive. She found Marcus still there, having stayed past his shift to help coordinate the crisis. Through careful translation apps and patient conversation, they discovered that Mr. Tanaka's condition was critical, but the real emergency was bureaucratic. Insurance forms in English that Mrs. Tanaka couldn't understand, medical authorizations that required immediate signatures, and time zone differences that had created a cascade of missed deadlines. "She trusts you," Victoria told Marcus as she reviewed the situation. "She told me that your voice was the first kind thing she'd heard all day. Would you be willing to help me save this family?" Marcus nodded without hesitation, even though he had no idea what he was agreeing to do. The twist came when Victoria realized the insurance complications weren't accidental. A competing firm had been systematically creating paperwork delays, hoping to force the Tanaka company into default so they could steal the account. This wasn't just about helping a family in crisis, it was corporate warfare disguised as bureaucratic incompetence. Victoria's hands trembled as she explained the situation to Marcus. If we don't get those authorizations filed by midnight Tokyo time, they lose everything. Their business, their insurance, maybe even. She couldn't finish the sentence about Mr. Tanaka's surgery. The rain continued to drum against the windows as they stared at the stack of urgent documents that needed to be completed, translated, and filed in 6 different time zones before morning. If this moment touched your heart, please give the video a thumbs up. Everything depended on the next few hours, and they were running out of time. The clock on Victoria's desk showed 11:47 p.m. as they discovered the full scope of the sabotage. Every form they'd managed to translate and complete had been mysteriously lost in the system, forcing them to start over. Mrs. Tanaka called back in tears. The surgery had been postponed again, and her husband's condition was deteriorating. Marcus watched Victoria's composure crack for the first time in all the years he'd known her. She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking with exhaustion and fear. "I can't let another family lose everything because of money," she whispered. "I watched it destroy my mother. I swore I'd never let it happen to anyone else." That's when Marcus did something that surprised them both. He pulled out his phone and started making calls to his network of night shift workers across the city. Security guards, custodians, dispatchers, and taxi drivers who knew every corner of the business district. Within an hour, he'd assembled an unlikely team of helpers, each contributing their skills to fight the bureaucratic nightmare. Maria, who cleaned the Brazilian consulate, helped translate Portuguese documents. James, who worked security at the International Medical Center, knew which doctors could expedite emergency authorizations. Even Mrs. Patterson from the 24-hour diner downstairs contributed by keeping everyone fed and caffeinated through the night. But the most crucial help came from Marcus's own experience. 15 years of watching people struggle with paperwork had taught him things that no business school covered. He knew which forms really mattered, which officials would answer their phones at 3 a.m., and how to navigate systems designed to wear people down. "My mama always said that sometimes God puts you exactly where you need to be," Marcus told Victoria as they worked side by side, copying documents and making international calls. "Maybe I've been cleaning these offices all these years just to learn how this place really works." The breakthrough came when Marcus remembered something he'd overheard months ago, a conversation about emergency protocols that could bypass the normal authorization process. It was buried in legal code that most people never bother to read, but Marcus had learned to pay attention to the details that others missed. Have you ever faced something like this, where everything seemed impossible until someone showed you a different way? Let us know in the comments. By 5 a.m. Tokyo time, they had one last chance to save everything. The final authorization required a signature that could only happen in person, and they had exactly 3 hours before Mr. Tanaka's surgery window closed forever. Victoria made a decision that would have seemed impossible 12 hours earlier. She booked herself on the next flight to Tokyo, carrying the original documents that could save the Tanaka family. But she wasn't going alone. "Marcus, I know this is crazy, but would you come with me? Mrs. Tanaka trusts you, and honestly, I don't think I can do this without you." For a man who'd never been on an airplane, the request should have been terrifying. But Marcus looked at the photo on Victoria's desk, the mother who'd lost everything to medical bills, and knew his answer. "Let me call my wife to pack a bag." The flight to Tokyo was 13 hours of anxious preparation. Marcus practiced pronunciation of Japanese courtesy phrases while Victoria coached him on business protocols. They were an unlikely team, the billionaire CEO and the night janitor, but they discovered something powerful in their shared commitment to helping others. They landed with 90 minutes to spare. Mrs. Tanaka met them at the hospital, her relief palpable when she saw Marcus's familiar face. Through careful translation and patient explanation, they navigated the final bureaucratic hurdles that had seemed impossible from across the ocean. The twist that saved everything came when they discovered that the competing firm's sabotage had actually created a legal vulnerability. By deliberately interfering with emergency medical authorizations, they'd violated international business law. Victoria's lawyer, conferenced in via video call, confirmed that this gave them grounds not just to complete the Tanaka authorizations, but to pursue damages that would more than cover the family's medical expenses. Mr. Tanaka's surgery was successful. As they sat in the hospital waiting room, sharing tea with Mrs. Tanaka and watching the Tokyo sunrise, Victoria realized that her company hadn't just saved a client, they'd discovered a completely new approach to international business built on genuine human connection rather than cold transactions. Marcus, still amazed to find himself on the other side of the world, smiled as Mrs. Tanaka pressed his hand and thanked him in English she'd been practicing. "You saved more than business," she said. "You saved family." If you've been enjoying this story, subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming tales. But the real transformation was just beginning, and what happened when they returned to New York would change both their lives in ways they never expected. 3 months later, Marcus still cleaned the Meridian building, but his role had quietly expanded. Victoria had created a new position for him, Director of Community Relations, recognizing that his years of observation and genuine care for people made him invaluable in building authentic client relationships. His salary tripled, but more importantly, he'd found purpose beyond his wildest dreams. The Tanaka account became Meridian's model for ethical international business. Mr. Tanaka recovered fully and insisted on flying to New York to personally thank the man who'd answered a phone call that saved his life. The photo on Victoria's desk now included a new picture: Marcus, Victoria, and the Tanaka family sharing dinner in Tokyo, all of them laughing like old friends. The competing firm that had created the bureaucratic sabotage faced legal consequences and lost several major clients when their tactics became public. Victoria used the settlement money to establish the Second Chance Fund, a program helping families navigate medical and financial crises, with Marcus serving as its heart and conscience. Mrs. Patterson's diner downstairs became the unofficial headquarters for their expanded network of night shift helpers, who discovered that their combined knowledge and connections could solve problems that stumped corporate executives. They called themselves the Night Shift Angels, and their quiet acts of kindness rippled through the city in ways that made headlines. Victoria still worked long hours, but she'd learned to value the wisdom of people like Marcus who saw humanity in every interaction. Her mother, visiting from the assisted living facility, was amazed to see her daughter's newfound balance between success and service. Marcus never forgot that rainy Thursday night when a ringing phone changed everything. His wife often joked that he'd become the most well-traveled janitor in New York, but she was proud of how he'd used his gift for caring to build bridges across cultures and circumstances. The last evening of our story found Marcus finishing his rounds as usual, but now he paused at every office to genuinely check if anyone needed help. Because he'd learned that sometimes the most important calls aren't the ones you're expecting. They're the ones that remind you that kindness, courage, and human connection can transform the world one heart at a time. If you enjoyed this story, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. Thank you for joining us on this journey that proves ordinary people can create extraordinary change through simple acts of compassion.